I'm Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, the president of the London Center for Policy Research, and welcome to Thought to Action, where we delve deeply into key issues and explore all sorts of things which are pertinent to the current political dialogue. Today we have Dan Shyti, where Dan is going to talk about his new book, American Gaslighting, How America is Being Systematically Taught to Self-Hate. And boy, do I see that every day in my own work. As we're taping this, we just experienced Joe Biden basically channeling the movie V or the Third Reich. I don't know which it is, where he gave this very divisive speech talking about 74 million people being the enemy of the republic because they want to end it, which I was shocked to hear because I didn't know that people who were calling for the return to constitutional governance as being revolutionary. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. And maybe Dan can help set me right. Dan, good morning and welcome to Thought to Action.
Good morning, Tony. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me on.
So you and I share a background a little bit. We're both former Army guys. I think we both had a great experience with the Army. I enjoyed my time. So I'd like to believe anybody who looks at our record would understand that our interest is not to tear down or end the republic, as Joe Biden was talking about anybody who disagrees with him politically are apt to do. I actually honestly think that it's more about how do you preserve and return to the basics of the republic. And so your book talks a great deal about that, right? I mean, go ahead and tell us a little bit about your book and why you wrote it.
Yeah, well, it centers all around gaslighting. And, some people are not familiar with the term, but basically gaslighting is beyond just mere lying to people. It's, I'll use a term that I'm sure you can appreciate. It's a psychological operation is what it is, right? psyop, as we used to call it in the military. So it is pervasive. I call it, a combination of, anesthesia and brainwashing all at once, designed to make a very compliant public that can easily be led into totalitarian government. That's the general strategy.
Right.
And it's designed to basically get people to doubt the reality that they see right in front of their very eyes.
So you have an engineering background. I know this may be strange. I've got an environmental studies background. I've actually got a degree in environmental studies. And I know what you're saying is completely true because as someone with a degree, an expert, if you will, I know there's constant and continuous backlighting regarding the environment and energy issues. Mm-hmm. We do not fundamentally have an energy crisis. This is all the lack is created by this attempt to turn the energy green, which, as I always remind people anytime I do a talk on this, what is the one thing required for green energy to make it work? Well, fossil fuel, because there's no such thing as green energy. There's always fossil fuel involved in some form because it's not capable of doing what they claim it is. And what they're doing, in my judgment, regarding gaslighting is saying, oh, this is necessary. Well, it's not necessary. We have, there's no climate crisis. If you look at the trends, NOAA and other organizations are going back in a very Orwellian way, changing history so that they can get this fake diagram showing global increase. The global temperature has not changed any significant way. It's fractions of a fraction of a percent. And there's no indication that CO2 is causing it. CO2 is plant food. So what do you get when you have more CO2? You get more plants. The Sahara Desert right now is in remission because they have more greenery growing. But I digress. Why let the facts get in the way of a good story, as the left might say? So that's my point to you. How do we not allow for experts like me to speak out about the fact that, hey, all this stuff the left is doing, it's a lie? How is it we don't fight more vigorously on this issue?
So, the book is, to me, it's more than just a book. I want to ignite a movement is what I want to do.
Okay.
And one of the main things that we need to do to solve this problem is to stop self-censoring. Okay. Stop self-censoring. Right. When we, and I encounter this daily in my work with clients, where you get some leftist person who has leftist privilege we'll call it, because they get to talk and talk and talk. And then if you believe in traditional values or you don't go along with the leftist orthodoxy, you're supposed to keep quiet. You shut up. So I refuse to shut up. Okay. And that's just what I am going to do. I'm going to boldly speak the truth, and I'm going to shout it from the rooftops because I know what I see. My engineering background, some people say, well, why should I listen to an electrical engineer about political issues and public policy? Well, very simple, right? Engineers solve problems. I approach everything from a very logical perspective, right? And I see clearly what the tactics are that are going on. And when you see something like that and you say it's leading you down a primrose path, something that can't possibly work, that will just destroy the country, I've got to speak out about it. And then the deep sense of patriotism that you and I basically share. I mean, we are patriots. We signed that dotted line, that paper that said we were going to serve our country. The Army could take us anywhere they wanted after they get our signature. Isn't that true?
Right. So to that point, it seems to me the left has successfully become the uber controller of the language, because I watch in speeches like last night, Joe Biden was able to gaslight the country. I mean, talk about the ultimate gaslighting. Everything he talked about and claimed the MAGA Republicans were doing, he's the one doing, and it's beyond. It was projection and gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that the left is constantly using words to place blame or responsibility on others. For example, I know Barack Obama in his speeches would always talk about how we needed to be kinder as a nation. And who doesn't want to be kinder, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, Dan, we all want to be kinder, right? And they always use these soft terms that you really can't pin them down on, but it sounds really good. So in my judgment, part of becoming able to see through the gaslighting is returning control of the language. We've lost control of the language, to your point, right? So please go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, no. So I'll tell you one recent thing, because they're constantly, and if you notice too, when they take control of the language, they replace one really good word with 2 or 3 words.
Yeah.
Okay? And now, and also they become euphemisms for what's actually going on, right? So it basically makes something seem, not as bad as it really is. The most current one that I come up with, and this is absolutely disgusting, is that a pedophile is now a minor attracted person.
I know.
Okay, a minor attracted person. And we're supposed to somehow now begin to fold them into the LGBTQIA, You know how that is, right? To continue to add, deviant behaviors to their basic acronym.
Right.
We're supposed to add them now and include them as some kind of protected group, right? And this is craziness, absolute craziness. They're pedophiles, all right? That's what they are.
Well, the other thing I notice is that when they use language for purposes of like you said, changing the fabric of the debate so that people have an emotional response. Like in that instance you just talked about, we're supposed to basically not be emotional about the fact that you're putting predators into mainstream society. So they're trying to, in that case, diminish emotions. Well, on the other hand, they'll go the other way. And one of the terms I always make fun of is the use of assault weapon. So a lot of people don't understand where that comes from. And this is where I always bring it up to our side. And I always bring this up to politicians, like, how is it you don't call them out on this? Because I always say, do you understand where the term assault weapon comes from? A lot of people don't. I said it's from, the origin is Sturmgewehr, which is a storm rifle or assault rifle, the STG 44, which was named by no one else than Adolf Hitler. Mm-hmm. So I always point out, it's like, how is it you all have adopted a name that Adolf Hitler himself used, and there's no analog weapon today in the inventory. We don't have assault weapons. So Dan, I always use this as like another case where they get away with using literally a Nazi term every day with no regard, and nobody ever says, you may not want to use that term because it's a Nazi term. I don't understand how we don't call them out for stuff like that.
No, that's exactly true. I know, but that list is very long. And when you look back, in fact, I talk about a great many topics in the book that are all tied to the same end goal, and that's basically the destruction of the American system.
Right.
And when you look at something like another hot issue, the abortion issue,
Mm-hmm.
and the Nazis adopted the the tactics of what's it called now? I'm losing it. But basically, where they basically started exterminating people that were unfit, eugenics. Okay, and that was basically advanced, okay, by the people that founded the abortion movement, and the Nazis adopted that, eugenics. So now, basically, that's another clear example of where this left.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
No, I mean, look, Dan, I point out to people all the time that the German use of abortion and other extreme medical procedures has been something that the left actually uses here. And I'm going to say something that's really inconvenient, but I think you want to speak the truth here. The black population has been stuck at 13% for decades, for decades. And all of the abortion clinics are predominantly in black communities. And get this, 40% of all of those abortions are used for purposes of selling tissue. I'll be polite. I'm just going to keep it at tissue.
Right.
How is this not similar to what the Nazis did? I'm serious. I mean, if you just break down and factually,
right,
break out what the left is doing and encouraging, how is it any different than what the Nazis did?
So you've segued into an area, and of race, okay, where I talk about that extensively in the book, because that's one of the primary areas of gaslighting, where the Democrats, around the time of the 1950s, okay, just after some key court decisions were passed, they suddenly flipped and became the protectors of black people in America.
Oh yeah. Right? Oh yeah, protectors. Yes, protectors. Yes.
Right, and where up until that time, okay, they were the oppressors. Okay, so I did a complete study and analysis of the book, because the book is really, a unique combination of analysis of human nature, analysis of history, okay, and then the political tactics of the left, and that's the core of the book. And when I started looking into the history of the Democrat Party, it's no wonder they want to tear down Confederate statues.
Yes.
It's no wonder that they want to blame, what happened to black people as a white problem. Okay, it wasn't a white problem. It was a specific group of white people, and we need to call them out on who they were. They were the Democrats. Okay, from the founding of the party, when Andrew Jackson ran for president, up until the present day, they are the oppressors of the black populations. Okay, and I say a present day, and I say that clearly, and I mean it. Okay, because if you look at the policies, all the failed policies of the inner cities, right? And I have an open letter to the black community in the back of the book. Okay, there's an open letter to the black community calling out specifically all the things that are wrong, that are hurting black people in America to this day, and they are all Democrat Party policies.
Right. So I think this is exactly what I wanted to get to, is the fact that we've essentially lost the language. They manipulate and hide their own evil intent, and it's truly evil. I mean, we're talking about, in the case of the abortion issue, a marketing of human flesh, literally, and using the most vulnerable people for that purpose. And it seems to me, Dan, a lot of this is focused on profit. I mean, as we talked about in the pre-interview, I'm working on it. It's editorial right now, hopefully be out soon. That points out exactly what you just said. It's about a monument here where I live. And it's very clear that the left has recruited minorities to pick up their message. And that message is, oh, everybody who's white is bad because of racism. It's like, to your point, no. President Lincoln and the Republicans actually stood up and said, no, we're not going to stand for this slavery issue. You got to give it up. And it was the Democrats every step of the way who fought him. Last time I checked, a Democrat assassinated Lincoln, just saying, I think, as I recall. So it's all these inconvenient facts that I constantly bring up, that the left attempts, because of the very thing you talk about, they attempt to change the story or gaslight. They lie about it. So, Dan, before we go, I really appreciate the courage it took for you to write this book, and I'm sure you're gonna get yelled at by folks because they're gonna say all sorts of things which aren't true. I've been there. I'm sure you're gonna be there too. What is the next steps now? What can we do to help you? Well, we're going to help you with the book, try to get people to understand what's going on. What else can we do to help fight back against gaslighting and make this a real movement?
So, I have a tagline, okay, that I use, and it's very simple. Think clearly. Think clearly. We have got to teach people to be skeptics, okay, of everything. And I'm talking about, even Republican politicians, all right? So people, there's a heavy critique in the book about the Democrat Party and its sordid history to this very day. And people will say, well, this is just a partisan hack who's writing a book. No, I'm wide awake, and I realize that there are elements of the Republican Party also, okay, that are sellouts, okay, and I encourage people to think clearly and to question everything that they hear in the media and apply their logic. And that's one of my quote unquote superpowers, as an engineer, is what I bring to the table is that I look at things logically. Who stands to win? Why do they want this? Is it good for me? Does it fit for the Constitution? Does it increase my personal liberty or does it decrease it? And I got to tell you, pretty much everything the Biden administration is doing these days is decreasing our personal liberties. So it's not in our interest to support these things. So we've got to teach people to think clearly, to question constantly, right? Not to believe what they hear in the media.
Well, I know from having been in the media, having been a whistleblower, the immense amount of manipulation the left makes anytime they think they're threatened. And I think there's a number of things. We could probably spend another half hour just going through all the different examples of what people are experiencing right now, everything from Mar-a-Lago to, as I mentioned, climate change, to abortion, to the war in Ukraine, which is another propaganda fest for both sides. And I agree with you regarding politicians in general. There's a real dearth of truth to anyone who seems to run for public office, and both sides do that. But I think that's for another day. Dan, I'd like to have you come back and talk more about that. As a matter of fact, we may want to pick a specific topic and go into a deeper dive, because this is something that is near and dear to our hearts at the London Center. And as a media guy, I'm always out there fighting the battle. I don't know if you knew this. I was one of the guys who actually was offered an early copy of the Hunter Biden hard drive. And Colonel Scott was a guy I worked with. We used to do loose nukes operations. None of them got away, just saying. We were able to. So the good news is it worked. But anyway, so Don Scott, Colonel Scott and I, I'm sorry, it's Colonel Ron Scott. Colonel Scott and I were colleagues. And then Ron called me one day, says, hey, my nephew, J.P. Mack, that you may remember that name, has got a copy of this hard drive, and it's real. So I did the vetting, and sure enough, I, as a professional intelligence officer, came to the conclusion it's real. Yet, Dan, I was somehow eliminated from the debate because, oh my goodness, you're even though you're a qualified intelligence officer, you can't speak out about this. Even though you've got direct knowledge, you can't speak out. And I was completely shut down by the media. Completely.
Yeah.
And it's frightening. How is that not? So I tell this story all the time. It's like we have to wake up to the fact that if you do not take the narrative being put forth by the left, the Democrat legacy media institutions that protect the government, if you go against that, you lose. And I think this is something that people need to realize. So Dan, I hope your book helps them wake up to what's going on. I hope it is a roadmap forward, not a cookbook, not to serve man, but something that we can actually use to actually help and fix things. So thank you, Dan, for joining us today. Be sure and check out his book, American Gaslighting: How America is Being Systematically Taught to Hate Itself.
Right.
So, and thank you all for
just visit AmericanGaslighting.com or Amazon. It's available on all the major outlets.
There you go. And check it out. Get it. I'll be reading through it, so I'll be prepared to actually ask Dan some deeper questions next time so we can explore some of this in better specifics. And thank you all for joining us for Thought to Action, where we go through and discuss thought-provoking issues such as this. Be sure and check us out on all the social media, Facebook, Twitter, although I'm not on Twitter, we are still. And, I'm on Getter. But be sure and download this if you can and enjoy it. And we look forward to talking to you again real soon.